Okay, so let's begin. I'm going to start by just settling in, getting the mind and body in the same place, which is quite rare. Usually, excuse me, speaking of, hmm, just realized my glasses were dirty. So normally we're running all over the place, right? With our mind, we're sitting on our chair or on the floor or wherever we are. And, you know, the body is there, but the mind is running into the future, running into the past, ruminating about something, etc. So what we try to do at the beginning is just get the mind and the body in harmony so that we can pay attention and do our practice. So let's do that. Kunsanda Sangara Shiri Sempema Karaja Banishuna Susunat Tangatsasu Katarana Masumanda. Minchiki keep returning to Susan Cake when came on it and some sugarness and Zeta. So anime shut off. Okay, so we want to begin with our bodhicitta motivation. Bodhicitta is a Sanskrit word. Bodhi means awakened or enlightened, and citta means the mind and heart together. So, what is that? That is the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. So, this enlightened mind or awakened mind means that we have this incredible compassion for others when we see their suffering. And we have the wisdom that understands what is the cause of that suffering, right? So the only way to really eradicate the cause is by attaining enlightenment. And we need to do that if we want to help others to reach that same state. Otherwise, it becomes the blind leading the blind. So sometimes bodhicitta is understood as a synonym for compassion, but is it synonym? Is that the right word? I don't know, but you know what I mean. Same as compassion, another word for compassion, but it's not. It's different. Compassion is a component for sure, but bodhicitta is far more than mere compassion. It is really that deep longing out of compassion to attain enlightenment and to do whatever is necessary towards that end. I think sometimes we forget that, having the wish is great. It's really great, but it's not enough if we're not doing the practice and the study and the meditation that is required in order to reach that end. So we have to include that as well. So if that seems like a bit much for you, that's okay. It's no problem at all. But if we can at least think, may the time that we spend together this morning benefit not only ourselves, but others as well. We'll take a moment to do that, please. Good morning, Tess. Thanks for the message. And Lucy. I just saw Lucy's name as well. Good morning, Tess and Lucy. All right. So today we're going to be discussing karma. Briefly, we will be discussing karma, otherwise known as the law of cause and effect. And we need to understand that, I'm going to be discussing this for, 25 minutes. Whoops, roughly 25 minutes. And that is not even a fraction of the time that is necessary in order to really understand this topic. It's very complicated, actually. In some ways, it's quite easy to understand, but in other ways, it becomes very, very intricate. So please don't take this this brief talk, as the be all and end all of understanding karma, okay? All right. So, as I said, so the word karma is a Sanskrit word, and it literally means action, Okay. So if we were going to be precise, we would say action and the result of action, or karma and the karmic result of what we do. But we tend to, in ordinary speech, um, sort of mix those things together. So that's okay. That's fine. So the law of cause and effect. So every action has a reaction. So what is that? That's physics, right? This is nothing that, it might seem exotic to us because it's not part of our culture. It's not part of, if we grew up in a spiritual tradition that was a part, that didn't have this as an element, seems quite foreign, exotic, it's so forth. But it's really not. It really makes so much sense. And it answers a lot of questions that people have, like, why do good people suffer? Why do bad people have everything handed to them? This kind of thing. Okay, so we'll understand that more as we go through this discussion. So karma is true, or the law of cause and effect should really be considered like a natural law. Okay. So what I mean by that is there's no judgment involved. There's no sort of outer force with a big ledger that's saying, you know, you did this, and so you're going to receive this result. In the same way, there's not an outer ledger that says, if I drink some of this water, there's going to be a little bit less water in this glass. It should be conceived of as practical as that. If I drink some of this water and there's a little bit less water in this glass, or the glass becomes empty, there's no moral judgment there. It's just the law of cause and effect. If you remove some water, there's less water in the glass. Same thing. Okay. It's hard for us, if we grew up in the Judeo Christian tradition, to not to sort of avoid the um, attitude of like reward and punishment when we think about karma or the law of cause and effect. So we have to be super careful. Like, we have to consciously make sure that we understand that when we're relating to this idea. Now, to remove some water. Okay. So there is no place for guilt or blame. Okay. That's a really important factor there. All right. Then we need to understand that karma is not equivalent to fate. It's not something that is set in stone. This is something that is in constant flux. Okay. So also we need to understand we can't really fully understand how karma works or relate to karma properly unless we consider, pardon me, past and future lives. All right. So right away, that idea might lose some people, but hear me out. Okay. So if you look at like why good people suffer, okay, someone could have been just an angel, from the moment they exited the womb till, their 30s or whatever. And then, they're just beset with suffering after suffering. They get sick, they lose their money, they whatever. And we might think like, but why is that happening to that person? They didn't do anything wrong. Okay. If we attribute that to luck or chance, like, how explain that? How does that make any sense? Like, I remember reading a book, I don't remember which book it was, unfortunately, but the author said, if you don't accept karma as the reason for things like what I just described, that's okay. Come up with a better reason then. You know, they're just, it's so logical. So the idea is that, in very broad strokes, the idea is that negative or unskillful acts of body, speech, and mind result in suffering, and positive or virtuous or skillful acts of body, speech, and mind result in happiness. Now, why am I emphasizing this word skillful? Because if we're saying good and bad, virtuous and non-virtuous, there's automatically a like a hint of judgment there, or a big dollop of judgment there. So skillful and unskillful takes that judgment part out, takes the the blame and guilt or praise and blame out of that equation. Okay. It just works like that. If we are kind, that results in happiness. Patience results in happiness. Stealing results in poverty and unhappiness. Killing results in short life and unhappiness. This kind of thing. Okay. So that's the broad stroke. Okay. It's not that hard to understand as a concept. The difficulty comes when we consider the fluctuating nature of karma. Okay. Because every sort of positive act that we do, I'm going to use the word skillful. Okay. You translate that as you wish, but I'm going to use the word skillful. So every skillful act we do, like being generous and so forth, results in happiness. Every unskillful act we do, like killing, results in unhappiness. That's the very broadest stroke. But there's so many other factors. So if we're doing something positive or skillful, it's going to lessen the results that we might get from doing something negative and vice versa. So there's this constant fluctuation in our karma. Then we have to think about other factors, which is the conditions need to be there. Okay. So we have the karmic seed, right? So if somebody gives you a packet of seeds for an apple tree and you just put it in your kitchen drawer, the conditions are not there for that seed to ripen. Okay. It won't ripen unless and until you plant it. And not only that, but you have to plant it at the right time in the right place and make sure it has enough water and enough sunlight and that deer and other animals don't eat it, etc. So those are all so many conditions that are necessary for that to ripen. It's the same with karma. We may have, let's say, stolen something in a previous life, right? But for some reason in this life, the conditions for us to experience the result of that are not there. But maybe next life, those conditions will be there. Let me give you another example. I feel like it might be a little bit confusing. So let's say that I personally, in one of my previous lives, created the karma to have a particular relationship, good or bad, with my child. Okay. But that karma cannot ripen in this life because I do not have a child. Right. But maybe next life I will have a child, and that will be the fertile ground for that karma to ripen in that life. So it's not, we can often see the karmic results in this life, sometimes immediately, sometimes down the road, but we have to consider past lives and future lives if we're going to really get the whole picture of how karma functions. Okay. So as I said earlier, it's not uh, equivalent to fate. So sometimes people think well, there's my karma. There's nothing I can do about it. We do see this notion of karma equaling fate in Indian culture. I can't say in Hinduism, because I don't know enough about Hinduism. I should probably study that, but in my spare time. But I don't know enough about Hinduism to say that is the teaching, but it seems that is how it is interpreted in India, where, this is the idea that has kept the caste system in place, right? But them saying, well, it's your karma, to clean toilets because you were born into that particular caste that cleans toilets and there's nothing you can do about it, right? It keeps people down. This is not at all the understanding in Buddhism, in Buddhist law. Okay. So another thing to understand about karma is, it's not by chance. It's not by chance that things happen to us, right? It's not by chance that, we have I don't know, wealth. That's not really by chance, you know, or that we're poor. That is also not by chance. These things are work according to the law of cause and effect. Um, so again, it's not a matter of blame, right? Of saying, oh, you were so bad in this life, or you were so bad in a previous life that now you're suffering. We really need to take that sort of blame guilt picture out of it and just say, well, at some point in my previous life, I created the situation where I'm wealthy or where I'm poor. Okay. Um, so you can't say, for example, like if I take this lid of my water jug, um, and I drop it, okay, it's not by chance that when I hold this and I let it go, it falls, right? That's not by chance. If that's according to the law of cause and effect, because of gravity, if I hold this in the air and I let it go, it's going to fall. If it was by chance, then anything could happen when I let this go. It could fly into the air and land on the ceiling. It could become a typewriter when I let it go. It could, I don't know, turn into a car. Like literally anything could happen if if things happen just by chance. Okay. So we need to think of it in that way. And this way of considering it is a good way to like take the judgment piece away because it really doesn't belong there. All right. So when we think about um, karma, law of cause and effect, it gives us so much power. You know, we we stop being the victim of our life. We can first of all acknowledge, I'm in this situation, good or bad, or most of us have a big mixture of those things in our life. I'm in this situation because of actions done in the past. Okay. So now I'm experiencing this. Believe it or not, this way of thinking actually removes some of the suffering that we might have because there's a kind of relaxation that comes with that. We remove that extra piece of mental anguish, right? Why is this happening to me? Why does this always happen to me? Oh my gosh, everything is terrible, whatever. We just said, this is my karma. This is just a result of things done in the past. Okay. So there's power in that, and there's a reason we can understand that, pardon me, and we can, pardon me, and we can relax a little bit around whatever we're experiencing. And the real power comes in understanding that if we work to train the mind into more skillful ways of being, such as being kind, being patient, being generous, uh, um, you know, working to meditate and concentrate the mind and all of that, that we can create happiness for ourselves in the future. So it's in our own hands. So that's good and bad, right? Because we would rather say the devil made me do it or God will save me or whatever, but it's our own responsibility where we're at. And it's our own responsibility where we're going to be down the line. Okay. That's so powerful. And that's like beyond like all of the amazing like philosophical discussion that goes into truly understanding the depth and breadth of the law of cause and effect. We can we can feel like, you know I can actually do something. I can actually do something. I have the power within me to create my own future. Yeah. So the Buddha said, if you want to know, so people are often interested, right? And you see that often in our own culture, where people do past life regressions and things like that. And funnily enough, nobody was like a cockroach in their past life. Everybody was Cleopatra or, you know, whatever. Some Anyway. go too much into that, but so people want to know. It's normal, you want to know what were my past lives, what is in store for me in the future. And they would ask the Buddha this question, and he said, it's really not that useful to try to, you know, look into the past or imagine the future. He said, if you want to know what your past lives were like, look at your present. Look at your life right now. And if you want to know what your future lives are going to be like, look at your life right now, right? So our life right now is indicative of our past actions, positive, negative, neutral, whatever. And our lives in the future are affected by what we do now. Okay. So this gives us also added impetus to, as I said, train the mind into positive acts of body, speech, and mind. Okay. Unfortunately, mind also creates karma. It's, I'm laughing because it's so hard. It's like I grew up Catholic and, never really talked too much about what happened in the mind. It was all what you said, what you did, right? But in Buddhism, we have to think about the mind. And actually, the mind is more important than the body or the speech because it's the mind that drives that whole system, right? So working with the mind is extraordinarily important. And this is where meditation comes in as an amazing tool, okay? Um, uh, but that means also that if we're just have a thought, a negative thought, that creates negative karma. Positive thought creates positive karma. We used to joke about that in retreat, like how hard it was. And you know we just would really like to be Christian again. So it was easier. But anyway, unfortunately, that is the way things work. So there are those things to consider. And then we need to consider, like, if we're talking about how karma actually functions, we consider the weight of the action. Okay. So all of our actions that we do carry a certain weight, a certain import. Okay. So before I really go into it, I want to talk about like what is considered generally virtuous and non-virtuous actions. So the 10 non-virtuous acts are 3 physical, which are taking life, taking what is not given, and sexual misconduct. There's 4 of speech, which are lying, sowing discord, harsh words, and worthless chatter. And there's 3 of mind, which is covetousness, wishing harm on others, and wrong views. So just that, I could talk another hour just about that. So I'm just going to go on to the 10 virtuous acts. 3 physical are it's just the opposite of the non-virtuous acts. Okay. So protecting lives, generosity, and proper sexual behavior. So just so people don't get their knickers in a twist. Um, Proper sexual behavior means uh, sexual behavior that doesn't harm anybody, right? It doesn't mean um, that you have to be married or that you have to be heterosexual or that you cannot be trans or whatever. It's just what kind of actions that we take in that realm. is- Are they hurting someone or not? If they're hurting someone, that's negative. Otherwise, it's fine. Okay. So the 4 positive or virtuous. I'm so sorry. Hang on. I'm gonna mute myself. I really have to cough. Thank you. Didn't do anything, but thank you. So the 4 virtuous acts of speech are to tell the truth, skillfully reconcile disputes, speak pleasantly, and recite prayers or the positive speech. And then positive acts of minds are generous thought, cultivating the desire to help others, and establishing the right view. So each of these is a sort of general guideline. They're not very rigid. The only one that they say, like, that a bodhisattva cannot do is the ones of mind, covetousness, wishing harm on others, and wrong view. Otherwise, they can do everything else, depending on the circumstances. So, the traditional example, when we talk about telling the truth, you know, tell the truth when it is skillful to tell the truth, when it is positive to tell the truth, right? When it's not going to be harmful to tell the truth. So the traditional example of that given is, let's say that you're in the forest and you see a deer run by that way, and then you see the hunting dogs come, and then you see the hunter, and the hunter asks you, which way did the deer go? Then in that case, you should lie. You want to protect the life of that deer. So you say you just went in the opposite direction, it just went over there. I don't know why your dogs are going there, because the deer went that way. Okay? That's lying, technically, but you can do it in that case. Another example of that is, um, people who want to be like so-called radically honest, radical honesty, it's not helpful to be like that. It's not helpful to harm others under the excuse of telling the truth, you know. So even just that one thing, if we think about it, has so many variables and so many iterations of that, So if you think about just that, telling the truth, do I tell the truth if it's going to hurt somebody? Do I tell the truth now? Do I tell it later? Do I tell it in a way that harms somebody? Do I tell it in a way that helps somebody? You know, if we just think about that alone and we see that that is complicated, imagine all the acts that we do of bodies, all the acts that we do of speech, all the acts that we do of mind in relation to the law of cause and effect, and you start to get some idea of how complicated it is. Okay. So the weight of the action depends on a few things. So one is our reason for doing that, or our motivation. Okay. So we can do a positive act with a, outwardly seeming positive act with a negative motivation. And we can do an outwardly seeming negative act, like the lying example, with a positive motivation. So the motivation is extremely important. In our culture, right, we say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And we would say, if we had a saying like that as Buddhists, the road to hell is paved with bad intentions. You can do things that seem good with a bad intention. For example, if you go to this example of telling the truth, inwardly there's something in you that actually wants to harm this person, and you say, well, I was just being honest. I was just telling the truth. They needed to know. No, they didn't need to know. They didn't need to know. You wanted to hurt them. So that's an example of that. Or you could, give something to someone with the intention of showing off to someone else, right? Like if you are on social media at all, you'll see so many videos of people going in the street and, um, you know, giving money to a homeless person. That's great. We should do that. But why are you filming that? Why are you putting that person all over the internet? Is that really helping them, or is that helping you? Is that something that is truly beneficial for them? Or is that something that you're doing just to get more views? You see what I mean? So there's that. And then, so that motivation is really the most important thing. Then there's, of course, the action itself. Okay. And we just went over the 10 generally non-virtuous and generally virtuous actions. And then, so the action will have a weight to it. So, for example, killing is much heavier, and the act of killing is much heavier than lying, for example. Okay, so what the action is also affects the weight of the karmic result, and then to whom were you doing it? So if we, kill an ant, it's going to be lighter karma than killing a human being. Okay. And then if we kill on purpose versus killing accidentally, so we take the ant example because I don't want to think about killing a human being. So, we kill insects all the time, actually, you know, getting into spring and the insects are starting to come out. And, just driving our car, we kill a lot of beings. And, walking across the grass, we kill a lot of beings. Cutting the grass, we kill a lot of beings. Let's take walking across the grass. Let's say we're just we're walking across the grass, to look at something. We accidentally step on an ant. We still receive some karma for that, some karmic result for that. But it's much less than if we see an ant and hatred arises and we, crush it with anger. Like that's much heavier. Okay. All right. Then we want to talk about the results of our actions. Okay. And this is again another like really big topic, but uh, um, and it's already 11, so I'm gonna just kind of be brief with the rest here. In general, where we are born, in which realm we are born, and there are 6 realms in Buddhism, and I'm not going to go into that because it takes too much time, but we're in the human realm, and there's the animal realm, and there's other realms. So the realm into which we are born is wholly dependent upon our karma, the law of cause and effect. That is the only thing that really comes with us from one life to the next. And then so that's important to remember. And then, as I said earlier, just whatever suffering or happiness we experience is a result of our own actions. And one interesting point is that the results of an action come to whomever is involved in that action. So if you take the example of meat eating, which involves, great deal of torture, or the animals, the sentient beings that we claim to want to benefit and lead towards enlightenment, we might feel like, well, I have nothing to do with killing them. Like they were already killed. I'm just in the store looking at this, very neat little package in plastic of, cow flesh. It's so gross. Anyway, and I'm just buying that. Like it was there and I bought it and I have nothing to do with it. And so I'm not going to receive any karmic result. I'm sorry to inform you that that is not true. Okay. Everyone involved in that. And if we are consumers of animals and animal products, like milk and dairy, cheese and butter and fish and beef and pigs and all the rest of it, if we're consuming those things, we're directly involved. Okay. And we receive the karma of killing. So we need to be really careful with that. You take another example of like war, some politician might decide to start a war somewhere and they might feel, well, I'm not going to be responsible. I'm not the one killing those people. I'm not the one dropping the bombs. I'm not the one firing the rifles. No, you are the one. And you receive the same karma as the person dropping the bomb, firing the rifle, whatever it is. So it's really sad. Anyway, so what do we do with this information, right? Um, we pay more attention to acts of body, speech, and mind. Don't take them lightly. Santideva says, don't take any negative act that you do. If it's small, don't think it has no effect. It just takes a spark to cause a forest fire. Yeah. The same way, don't take small positive acts as like nothing. Many drops will fill an ocean. So even small positive acts that we do, like putting out bird seed to feed the birds, or, calling someone up on the phone that we know is having a hard time, and, I don't know, bringing someone a glass of water. All of those things count, they matter, right? Same with negative things. We might feel like, we're driving and we have some anger towards the other drivers because they're not doing what we want. We might feel like, well, it's nothing, that's just in me, and I'm not harming them, and they don't even know that I'm mad. If they don't know that we're mad, certain ways we can let them know we're mad. But we can think like that doesn't hold any weight. That's nothing, no, no, baby, no. You know, that anger is the seed for a great deal of suffering. And that's why we need to work with the mind. That's why we need to really make energetic progress in the good, as they say, right? So we want to, in general, try to increase positive or skillful acts of body, speech, and mind, and try to decrease negative acts of body, speech, and mind. And we don't really need to fight with the so-called negative acts. We just need to work at creating new habits. If we concentrate on becoming more patient, we'll naturally be less angry, less violent, and so forth. That's what I mean. Okay. So another factor is that we should have compassion. Once we understand karma, once we understand that our suffering is a result of our own actions, then we have compassion both for the one who, like, both for the perpetrator and the victim. Normally, we just have compassion for the victim, right? But we need to understand that the perpetrator, the bad guy, is creating negative karma for themselves by doing those negative acts, and will therefore suffer in the future. Now, with this idea, it's super important not to conflate that with revenge. Okay. And this is the general pop culture understanding of karma is revenge. And that's a really, really wrong understanding. So you see it, people saying like karma's going to get you, karma's going to bite you in the butt. Oh, I can't wait till, karma. They don't understand. We don't want that. We don't want anyone to suffer. And all of our suffering, including the suffering of the victim, is the result of our own actions of body, speech, and mind in this or previous lives. So we need to have that broader view, and again, to have a sort of understanding of past and future lives, or an acceptance of the concept of past and future lives, in order to get the full picture. Because that is what explains why good people suffer, why bad people, sometimes have everything handed to them, right? Law of cause and effect, the ripening effect of these actions, the conditions that are now there for these things to take fruition. So maybe here's an example, like maybe someone is ultra rich, but they are a really bad person. And I'm sure that we can think of a few examples off the top of our heads right now. All right. The ultra rich comes from being very generous in previous lives. Okay. The negative actions come from this life. Okay. And so in the future, they're used to sort of using up all their positive karma that they accrued by being generous, by having all this money, and they're just creating a lot of negativity with all this money. So in the future, they're going to suffer for that. And we want to avoid feeling, oh, good, they're going to get what they deserve. No, no, no. We're all getting what we deserve. There's no like deserving or not deserving. There's no value judgment. There's no moral judgment. It's just cause and effect. All the suffering that we see right now that inspires compassion in us is due to those beings doing negative acts in the past, right? So this being doing negative acts in the future, in the present, is going to be the victim in the future. You see what I mean? So there's that like future aspect that we have to consider. And there's also the present aspect, which again, like I'm really running out of time, but everything that we do is because we want to be happy and we don't want to suffer. Everything, even the negative acts that we do, is because we want to be happy and we don't want to suffer. Okay. So someone is acting in a negative way, it's because they are suffering. So we should have compassion for them now, because this negative act that they're doing comes from their own suffering and their ignorance and misunderstanding, and feeling like if I do this thing, if I kill this person, I'm going to be happy. Okay. And on top of that, they're creating suffering for themselves in the future. So sometimes people misunderstand that, having compassion for the perpetrator, as weakness, as saying, well, what they did was okay. It's not at all bad. It's not at all bad at all. What they did is not okay. And if someone is killing, which definitely they should go to jail. It's not about that. It's about relating to them from the heart. About having compassion for them doesn't mean that you let them walk all over you, or that what they did was okay and we should just let everybody, have a free for all and everybody can do whatever they want. It's not that at all. Okay. So what to do? Pay more attention to acts of body, speech, and mind, have compassion both for the victim and the perpetrator, and we can purify our own negative acts. How do we do that? Briefly, as I said earlier, doing more positive acts will ameliorate the results, the karma that we have from doing negative acts in the past. This subject, I'm looking at my notes and I'm like, this is going to take another hour. Just can't. Okay, so we can do that. Another way is just going through whatever the thing is, going through the illness, going through the, emotional pain, whatever. That purifies the karma. Or we can do practice of Vajrasattva, which is the whole thing. It's a practice in the Vajrayana that involves some visualization and mantra recitation and ways of thinking that help us to purify our karma. Okay, so in brief, why we need to know about karma, why we need to know about the law of cause and effect. First, it puts our suffering and happiness into our own hands, as I said earlier. Second, knowledge of how things work increases our wisdom. This is how things work. All right. And again, you can accept or reject that. That's totally up to you. But I would really encourage you to study it in depth, because it's really, really interesting. And it does explain a lot of things that are otherwise unexplainable. Then it opens the door to compassion, as I just described. And it's an inspiration to cultivate virtue and avoid non-virtue. All right, so we are fully out of time at this point. So let's just get to some meditation. Okay. So what I want to do today for meditation, excuse me, is spend a few minutes on mindfulness or breathing practice, and then I want to do some Tonglen practice. Okay, we haven't done that for a while. So I want to begin by, hey Liz, we want to begin by just taking the meditation posture. So if you're in a chair, you just want your feet flat on the floor in front of you. If you're sitting on a cushion or your bed or whatever, just cross your legs in whatever way is comfortable. Hands can be palms down on your knees or resting one on top of the other like that in your lap, or with your fingers on top and your thumbs touching it like that, whatever is more comfortable for you. The back is straight. Back of the neck is also, spine is straight. Back of the neck is also straight. Chin's going to be tucked in a little bit. Arms are relaxed. Shoulders are back a little bit. Mouth is closed, tongue resting on the roof of the mouth. Breathing through the nose, the eyes are open, looking downward with a relaxed lower gaze. This posture supports the mind in meditation. You're just going to bring your awareness to the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose, okay, under the nose. Or take a moment to notice that sensation first. Okay, so now that you have that sensation, you're aware of that sensation, you just want to try to maintain continuous, relaxed awareness of that sensation and letting the thoughts come and go as they will. So please begin that now. And now we're going to move into the practice of Tonglen, practice of exchange, which is taking on the suffering of others and offering them our own happiness. So I'll just guide you through that. So we're going to begin by just resting the mind. So just let the mind settle. If you want to close your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes for this. If you want to leave them open, that's also fine. But begin by just resting the mind, letting it settle, neither concentrating on anything nor being distracted. Just rest in a state of being. Now imagine in your heart center, so that's the middle of your chest, a very bright white light like a shining star, with light going in all directions. And then consider that you're breathing in gray smoke through all the pores of your body. It's hot, dark, and heavy. Just breathe that in. And all of that smoke dissolves into the white light in your heart center. So there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. And you're going to breathe out this white light through all the pores of your body. The light is cool in temperature, clean, clear, very bright. So breathe that out through all the pores of your body. Now, normally there are four general types of individuals that we can work with here: someone we love, someone who is neutral to us, so that means we neither particularly like them or particularly dislike them, and someone we dislike, and ourselves. Okay. But today I would like to just work with someone who is sick. Right? You know someone who is sick, bring them to mind. If you don't know someone personally that is sick, just plenty of people are sick. Just imagine someone who is sick. Well, picture them in front of you. If you're close to them, then this feeling of love will naturally arise. If you're not close to them, or maybe you don't really know them, then just try to connect with them through your heart. This person who is suffering physically, there may be mental anguish associated with that, confusion, fear, anger, whatever that person is experiencing, whatever kind of suffering they have. We generate compassion for them, the wish that they be free of this suffering. So we imagine that all their suffering, whatever it is, takes the form of gray smoke, hot, dark, and heavy. It leaves them and it comes to you, and you, with love and compassion and courage, you breathe that in through all the pores of your body. And all of that smoke just dissolves into the white light in your heart center. Dissolving and dissolving until there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. And then you consider that you're giving this person your own happiness, your own health, along with anything at all that they may need to feel better, to be healed. And adding to all of that, the wish that they attain full and complete enlightenment in this very lifetime. And all of that takes the form of white light, cool and clear, very bright. And you breathe out this white light through all the pores of your body. It goes to this person who is sick and just completely fills them with light. Their sickness is healed. Their suffering is lifted off of their shoulders, whatever type of suffering it may be. And they feel so relaxed, happy, at ease. And you feel joyful for being able to do this for them. And we do the same for all beings. First imagining them all around, in front, as many beings as we can conceive of, stretching all the way to the horizon. To the right, same thing, all the way to the horizon, as many beings as we can imagine. Behind, countless sentient beings stretching all the way to the horizon. And to the left, again, all the way to the horizon. So now we're in the middle of a sea of sentient beings. And the first thing we want to do is just connect with them. like us, like you. Each one of them only wants to be happy, only wants to avoid suffering. And yet they continue to create the causes of their own suffering, just like we do. And they suffer, just like we do. So we imagine them all and include whatever physical sickness, suffering that they may have. Also, the sickness of ignorance, of suffering, of confusion, emotional suffering, etc. But we just think about all their suffering, whatever it is, and we consider that their suffering takes the form of gray smoke, hot, dark, and heavy. It leaves them and it comes to you, and with a great deal of compassion and courage and openness and love, you breathe that in through all the pores of your body. That smoke begins to dissolve into the white light in your heart center until there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. Then we offer all these beings without exception our own happiness, our health, possessions, our merit, along with anything at all that they may need to feel better, and adding to that the wish that they attain full and complete enlightenment in this very lifetime. And we breathe that out. We breathe out this white light, every single pore of our body, emanating a very powerful ray of white light, cool and clear, very bright, going in all directions as far as the eye can see. And when these rays of light touch all beings, each and every being individually, their suffering just lifts off of them and disappears like fog in the morning sun. They feel so happy, so relieved, at ease finally. And you feel joyful for being able to do this for them. And then we just let the visualization go, gently bringing the mind back to the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose, being in the present moment, here and now. Okay. So before we go on to the closing prayers, I just want to say, like, that's the formal way of doing the practice of exchange or tonal line practice. We can make that very brief by simply, when we notice whatever kind of suffering we have, whether it's sickness or mental anguish or poverty or whatever it is, we can think, may this suffering take away the suffering of others. This gives purpose to our suffering, and this is taking our suffering onto the path. So we're using our suffering to practice, to generate compassion, to increase our love and compassion for others, which will help us to progress on the path towards enlightenment. So it can be very brief, If we feel pain in our back, may this pain take away the pain of all beings. Or you can make it specific, may whoever has back problems be free of their back problems, use whatever example works for you, depression or whatever it is, sickness. Okay. All right. So let's do these closing prayers together. If you're on YouTube, you can find a link for them below. I am going to share my screen with you so we can see them together, but it would be good to download them for yourself in any case. You can find them on our site on the Buddha page, Buddha Sadhana page. Okay, so we say these long life prayers. Sorry, okay. For the Dalai Lama, and then Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche, and then Palmo Rybicki, and long life of our teachers. So we're just going to say these in Tibetan. Join or not, as you wish. Kanri wa wei ko wei shinkan su pentan de wa ma lu chu ne. And as you want and sing him so ye, shape gel ka ba tu tank your she. Om Srishti Jigme Kempe Kalong Yamparu Punkab Se Chen Se Se Puntawa Niturdan Sanam Ke no Bucho Sechega We Shaking Tansu So Om Srishti Se Like Your Search in Mountain June Unsim Dan Se Your True Pemawa Samsun Nadre Yapo Tatene Lakshan Tender Shetan Take Show Nama Kungan Sampo Sawadat Chutuku Siriwa Sawadat Yune Tashingi Ba Sawadat Nama Dandre Wa Me Pa Chingi Lo. Now the next page, we say this first one once in English, once in Tibetan, and the remaining three just in English, and then we do say the Vajrasattva 100-syllable mantra. Okay? By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Sonandi tamche sipani tone ne pedranam pamche shing kegana chi balon tu pai sipe sole drowa sho. May bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish ever more and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may it too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms and primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakaya, may I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Tishta Jito Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Soa Siddhi Me Prayatsa Soa Kama Sutsa Me Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ha. Bhagawan Sawatata Kata Vajramame Munsa Vajrayama Samaya Sattva. Okay, so I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for joining me this morning. And we have meditation every Saturday, typically from 10:30 to 11:30. The second Saturday of every month, we are at the Lakewood Public Library on Detroit. And we're always on YouTube. So if you want to join us, please do. If you want to look at our channel and see all the different topics that we've covered, please do that too. Maybe you feel like you want to meditate, but you would prefer to have guided meditation. This is your place, find any video you have. It's always guided meditation. I also want to let you know we do have some new classes and other programs coming up. If you want to know about that, the best thing to do is sign up for the newsletter and find the link below for that. Also, we very, very much appreciate any donations that you're able to make, no matter how small or how large. Everything really helps and is truly, truly needed. So please think about that. And otherwise, have a great day. And thanks